Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Courageous Curiosity Podcast. In this show, we ask questions that we're curious about. That's part of being an educational community, I think, is to stay curious about things. And I'm excited to just let everybody know that we're going to start getting on a regular schedule. We've been releasing about 2 of these a month, and now we're going to make them a little bit more predictable. So anyone that's been watching the show, subscribing to the show, we're going to be releasing our episodes on Tuesdays, actually every other Tuesday. So we're obviously releasing this one today. And our next topic is going to be on what a school board member does. And so we're going to say, we're kind of curious about that. What exactly does a school board member? I get that question a lot. So we're going to be unpacking that in our next episode. But this episode, something that we're really excited about, and the curious question is, why is parent volunteering so important to a school? And we've seen actually quite a significant amount of challenge since COVID with parent volunteering and all of the things that are going along with it. So we have a tremendous group of people who are in our community who are going to be able to share their little piece of wisdom and expertise with us today. And so grateful to have all of you. And so we're going to have each of you introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about what you do for the district or for kids. And Kaija, we'll start with you on the end.
All right. My name is Kaija Juszak, and I am currently the vice president of the Novi Athletic Boosters. I have volunteered on PTOs for the last, 14 years, I guess.
It's been a bit.
A bit.
And you're also just kind of last year, you were on middle school PTO, and before that, you were on a different PTO, right?
I was middle school PTO. I was on Meadows PTO.
Okay.
And then I was president at Parkview Elementary, but I started at Village Oaks.
Okay. So a long line of volunteering at the school.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Hey.
Hey. John Brickey, principal, Novi Meadows Elementary School, which is our 5th and 6th grade building in the district. Also proud parent of a high school junior here at Novi High School and a 5th grader at Novi Meadows. So my perspective is a pretty unique one in that we, my wife and I are now parents and also trying to volunteer. And then in my role during the day as principal, I'm relying very heavily on volunteers.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Definitely interested in the conversation.
You have a super interesting role, not only as a principal and a parent, but you also volunteer. I know we've known each other a long time. We spent a lot of time coaching track together back in the South Lyon days. But the other thing that's kind of interesting is that you've actually been volunteer coaching for our track program. So in addition to all of the other things you're doing, you threw on the cape and decided to do that.
I was bored.
Yeah.
A lot of extra
You can
time
see how
on
that
me,
would
right,
happen.
right.
That's awesome. So Kristy.
Yes, my name is Kristy McKone. I am the president of the high school orchestra boosters. I've been in a position for about 3 years now. Prior to that, I was involved at Orchard Hills. Not so much in a same type of role. I wasn't in a board role at that point. I was largely involved in different committees, running events and that type of thing. I also help out with my son's 4-H club. And yeah, that's about it.
So also a lot of volunteering. Yeah, it's been really nice to work with you on Interschool Council. I know that you have a passion, obviously, for orchestra and all of the things that your kids are involved in, but it definitely takes people committed like you to do that. So
Thank you.
Anu.
Yeah, hi. My name is Udupa, and presently I am the assistant coach of the Frog Fuzz, which is our Novi High School robotics team. I've been involved with the high school robotics for 8 years now, but even other, like I did the elementary and the middle school level robotics before. I have 2 boys. So, that's how I have the 8 years with the in high school. And before that, I did volunteer. I was on the PTO for Deerfield Elementary too, so
That's
helped
great.
out with some of their other activities over there.
And I know that you've said in the past conversations that part of why you got so involved is that you wanted to find a way to connect with your boys, right?
Yes.
And that was kind of the way that you found to do that.
Yeah. So that's what I hear people say that they don't know what's going on in their child's life, and this gives you a connection. You have things to talk about, common things to talk about. So I really enjoyed working with them for the last 8 years.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and I think that's a good launching point for this conversation. So, you talked about that motivation to have that connection with your child. What can you speak to? And I mean, anybody can take this question, but what can you speak to relative to the motivation, right? The benefits of volunteering, not just for your kids, but for all of the kids that are involved in those things. What are some motivating points? You mentioned connections and relationships with your own kids, but what are some things as a parent that you would say, these are some of the benefits and why, you should, reap those benefits by volunteering?
I have one point which I would like to talk about.
Sure.
This was like, like as in this digital age, it's difficult to connect with the kids. And then like I do spend a lot of time with the other kids too. So you learn a lot about the lingo that's going on. So that's another way to connect with the kids
Sure.
and know what's going on. Like, and sometimes like, oh, what does this mean now?
They're moving faster than we can
Yeah.
learn those things. But yes, that's amazing. That's an amazing point. Anybody else?
Something that I would add. So my perspective is an interesting one, given my role in the district, yes, but my background as well. So my mom and my dad were both exceptionally involved in my school experience and my brother and my sisters. So my mom, PTO president all through all of our elementary careers. My brother is 6 years younger than I. My sister is 8 years younger. So my mom had a long run PTO. My dad was the president of the Little League Football Association and then the president of the Booster Club. I grew up in a home with parents who all they did with their free time was invest in us. That was it. And so I don't think it's an accident that now, as a parent and somebody who is also running a school, all of the free time I have, I am also investing in because I saw the benefit of it as a kid. Like I very clearly remember how it felt having my parents present, involved, knowing what's going on, able to ask questions, have conversations. And so I'm trying really hard to be that parent for my kids, my wife as well. And it is exhausting.
Yeah.
It is
Totally.
For sure.
absolutely exhausting, right? Like get to Meadows before the sun rises, and many days we're leaving after it sets, certainly in the winter. My son plays club soccer. I'm the manager of his team. My daughter is in plays. We are very involved in that. Like, it's a lot. However, the juice is worth the squeeze. Like, the enjoyment that we get out of it, the connections that we have with our kids and with our kids' friends, and then the connections we've built with their parents and their families. Some of our very, very best friends are people that we have met through these opportunities and the experiences that we've had. So, it's so hard to find the time in today's world. Like today's world it's so intense and so busy, and you don't want to miss out on this thing because of that thing. If you can figure out a way to get in and start, giving some time and becoming involved, it is so rewarding on the back end. And, there's, my parents would always remind me, there's going to be a day where you wish it was all back. Years, the days are long, but the years are short, right? My son's a junior. We're getting close to the end, and I'm so thankful for everything that I have done because pretty soon I'm going to be wishing I had it back.
Sure. What do you think, Kaija?
That was kind of one of my points as well. I started when my son first started kindergarten, and I think a lot of it was because he was leaving my house for a long period of time, and I didn't see him or know what he was doing at all. And so a way to know like the culture of the school or like kind of get a glimpse into his day was to volunteer. And I was fortunate enough that year that I didn't have a full-time job, so I started volunteering in the classroom, and I did like I was a motor mom. I took the kids out in the hallway, and they jumped on trampolines and stuff.
That's awesome.
And that was great. But then I ended up eventually getting a job, and so the PTO was a way that I could still stay connected to the school. So it just kind of gave you a glimpse into like what they were doing, what they were experiencing. You got to know the teachers. You could kind of see who you maybe thought your kid could do well with. Like there's other little perks in there too,
Sure.
other than just seeing it. And then now I have a senior, so like Mr. Brickey was saying, like we are pretty much almost to the end,
Right.
And it's crazy. Like you can't. It just doesn't seem like that much time has passed since kindergarten, you know. And I've been fortunate to be able to go through. I have a freshman also at one point or another, I was doing something at one of their schools or both. So it's just nice to be able to see it. And now that it's ending, I don't know what I'm going to do with all the extra time.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they both play travel sports, and we're always going somewhere.
Yeah,
so.
and it's such the American family now, right? I mean, everybody's on the run, they're moving, they're doing all these things. But I think both of you brought up a really good point, and that is, it's done in an instant, right? I mean, I have a senior as well this year, and it's amazing to think about how quickly that time has passed. And I think as a parent, you don't want to look back over their childhood and say, I really wish I would have been more present. There's always going to be time to do other things that you want to do, but it's really about investing in the most precious people in our lives. So I think you both brought up really, really good points there. Kristy, with Orchestra, obviously I was talking with somebody that was one of our parents in the band, and there's just such a shortage now of parents that are either willing or able to be able to do that. I mean, are you seeing that in Orchestra as well, and in the other things that you're volunteering for? And maybe what are some of those root causes that we could pinpoint?
Well, yes, I agree. I think, it has been a challenge over time. And I recognize in my work with the elementary school, it's changed quite a bit in the last even, say, 8 to 10 years, as far as that goes. And as far as the root cause goes, I'm not really sure, honestly. I think we all want the best for our kids, but I think sometimes it's easy to forget how important that extra time is, and that support of them in the things that they love. I will say, as far as the band and the orchestra go, and this is true of a lot of the different activities at the high school, I think having, we have a very large high school, over 2,000 students, and I think band, orchestra, sometimes some of the athletics provide a smaller environment for our kids in a very big school, an environment where they know people over 4 years.
They have a
lot of
tribe.
support. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to support those things in that way as well as, the importance that exists there. But, as far as fewer volunteers, I don't know if there's perhaps people feel maybe intimidated by it. I wish they wouldn't. I can, speaking on behalf of Orchestra, we're very open. We're not like an exclusive club of people. We're very happy to have others come, and everyone has something to contribute. Everyone has some way that they can help, whether they work full time, whether they don't. We have a lot of opportunities for parents who, maybe have their time in the evening, and they can support us at home, perhaps by being like on the scholarship committee and reviewing things at home, or working on the newsletter, or that type of thing. So there are really a lot of ways that people can support these programs, but I'm not sure that people are always aware of that.
Yeah, it's almost like making sure they know what opportunities exist for them to volunteer. And I'm going to just pose a question to all four of you, and this is a theory, and it could have absolutely no merit whatsoever, but we went through COVID. And it was for a period of time, a lot of the schools said, whoa, we've got all of these health restrictions. We can't have parents coming into our buildings. Look, everybody needs to just stay out. And I think in a way it was almost like breaking the momentum, right? Parents were used to coming into the building. They were used to volunteering. They were doing that. And then it was like a sharp halt. And now here we are, and we're kind of, a couple years removed, and we're like, listen, we really need people to come back into the building. And for a lot of people, it's almost like, hey, I've kind of moved on. I mean, it's almost like a weird relationship or like a breakup or something. But it seems like we haven't recovered from COVID in terms of people feeling welcome into the schools. And I'm just wondering if that, is a theory that could have some merit, and if so, what could we do about it? I mean, it's open to any of you, but I just am thinking about this issue and wondering if that's got a factor to play at all.
I do think in some cases, and again, this is speaking more elementary, there were maybe events and activities that happened in elementary school that, with that break with COVID, some of these young families aren't even familiar with them. And for example, I was involved with a math club at Orchard Hills, and that was something that I got involved in for selfish reasons, because I had a daughter who was not very confident in math, and I thought that would be a way to build her confidence. And so we had that at Orchard Hills for a few years, and they haven't had it very much. in a while. And I think in large part because a lot of the young families there with that break in COVID don't even know what it is.
Sure.
Don't even know that the school has those materials, for example.
So bringing an awareness to that. What do you think? Anybody else?
I agree with that. I think you lost like that group of new kindergarten, parents that were coming in, or maybe a couple years of them, which is usually when you really start to get your kind of base of your volunteers at the elementary schools. And I do think once you get, setting the tone at the elementary schools, I think helps then throughout the older grades. Because if you're a volunteer in elementary, I think you see it and you get used to it, and then you take it through whatever stage your kid's in.
It becomes a part of what you
It
do
kind
as
of
a parent.
becomes a part of what you do. So I think we lost like those couple of years, like we lost the new ones, and then the ones that were already there kind of fizzled out because they couldn't do as much of what they could do. And you're right, like some of the assemblies even, like we went without assembly. Like it just, all the things that happened before COVID didn't necessarily happen once the kids were back in, and then the parents couldn't go back in. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think it did probably put a little stutter in it.
Yeah.
I will say, though, I do think, like, as even at Parkview, like, which was a long time ago, we were still hurt. Like, it's always kind of hard pulling people in. Like, I do think people feel like they have to have a lot of time to do it, and you don't. Like, there's big and small everywhere. So I contribute some to COVID, but I also think we were kind of on the downturn before COVID hit, too.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I think that there had certainly been a downward trend identified by people working in buildings as a sign of the times, right? The speed of life and whatnot. Then COVID hits, and everything is just stopped. And in a place like Novi, so, as I mentioned, my wife is an elementary school principal in another district. I have many friends who work in other school districts. Novi is an exceptional place for so many reasons. One of, and I would argue one of the most important, the community and parent support is absolutely an uncommon thing. It is a separator. It is a huge separator. Without the amount of parent support we get, we slowly become everyone else. That is all there is to it.
That's kind of a good point, because I don't know what goes on in other districts, right? Like, I assume they're all the same as us, but maybe we're doing good.
I taught in another district. I was raised in a third district, worked in that district. It's not common what we have. There was exceptional momentum, and it was, I would argue, almost generational momentum with the amount of support that the community of Novi has thrown towards its schools. And that momentum had started to slow, as everywhere, but our starting point was much higher. Right. So our slowing was still really strong support. And then we were shut down. Like everyone was. And so getting that momentum going is very hard from stop. Right? Physics tells us that.
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna just follow up with a question to you, Mr. Brickey. I mean, I have heard, and as I kind of have been asking this question of parents, what are some of the barriers? And I've heard people say, teachers don't want us in the room. Like, teachers do not want us in there. And so I think there's kind of mixed messaging, right? Like, they're hearing maybe a principal or somebody saying, "Oh, we'd love to have you. You're welcome in there." But then the teachers are kind of being met with, "Oh, no, wait, we don't want you to come in to our room," which I have not observed our teachers doing here. I know that that's happened in other places. Are you seeing that in the schools, that the teachers are actually not wanting that? Because I've also heard from a lot of teachers that they would love more parent support in terms of in the building help, whether that's making copies or helping with lunch, or there's a myriad of things that people could do. I think that maybe that's a bit of a misconception. I don't know.
From my perspective, that is a misconception. And Meadows is a really interesting, existence proof of that, right? Like, we take fourth graders and turn them into seventh graders. We get elementary students and we send middle school students. And so that transition from 5 to 6, the opportunity to volunteer in a classroom does start to look a bit different.
Yeah.
In fifth grade, it is a day where the times can ebb and flow a bit. You can extend that literacy block if you need to. Like, there's some room for play to get some people in to do some things. Whereas the sixth grade, it looks a little bit more middle school. There's a start and a stop to every class period. It's a little more, it's a little more focused and fast paced
Sure.
because so the volunteering might start to look a little different
Yep.
as your student progresses in age, but it does not mean that we do not need people coming in and helping, and that we don't want people coming and helping, and that
Right.
we don't appreciate it.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think in kind of a defense to the misconception that I would say is we all know of the bad actor, right? We all know of the parent that comes in who comes in for nefarious reasons, right? They're wanting to watch the teacher do something or whatever. And I think teachers hear about those stories and it's like, wait a second, I don't need to invite that situation in. But those are so few and far between, and so I think parents hear about that and they're like, oh, I guess nobody wants us in. But that's actually not true. We do. And I know our teachers often will say it'd be great to have, another set of hands to help with some of those things. Anu, I'm interested, one of the things that happens at the high school is the parents all of a sudden disappear. Mm-hmm. And that is not the case. And I know there's some social factors, right? I mean, I know I have teenage daughters and middle school kids, and they're like, Dad, please just don't show. I mean, they are different than they are in elementary school, and every child's different. I know high school kids that love to see their parents around at things, but robotics has not seen this decline and drop off. So what is the secret sauce? What are you doing well, because you have so many volunteers that are pouring into those kids and coaching and mentoring? What do you think that the recipe is there?
So I wouldn't say that we don't see a drop off. Like with the number of middle school, we have 13 middle school teams here in Novi, and we are very successful because of the parents' involvement. 3 out of the 8 teams which are going to Worlds from the middle school this year are from Novi, which is like a huge number.
Yeah, amazing.
So it's all because of the parent volunteering, at least in the middle school level, right? Mm-hmm. But you would expect, like from 13 teams, we would get so many more mentors coming into high school. That doesn't happen. There's a big drop off there too. Mm-hmm. So there's this thought that in high school they don't need to. We don't need to help out. So which we have been struggling. This year has been much better than usual. We have had a lot more parents helping out, and I think it's partly because most of these parents have helped in the middle school, and then they come into high school. And it's also the different things which they can work in. Like robotics is sometimes people do think that it's just technical. It's not just the robot. There's so many other things they can help with. So there are different ways they can be helping. Like on the business side, on the social media side, like if you don't want to do the stuff which you do at work, so there's other options to do. So that's how we have a lot of volunteers, and I would say like about 30% of the volunteers and mentors we have are parents who don't have a child anymore on the team.
Wow, that's amazing.
So they have they stay back and they help, and they put in a lot of work, especially during the season now from January through April. They're there every day from evenings, or they come directly from work, say from 6 till about some of the mentors are here till about 10:30, 11.
Wow, wow.
So
it's amazing, that commitment level. But you're obviously doing something to let parents know the need and what they can do and how they can be helpful. And I think it's a great model for a lot of our other programs. I'm going to throw two more questions as we're kind of winding down here a little bit. But one is, for any of you, we serve in a community that has this beautiful diversity, and I think it's one of our biggest strengths as a community, that our kids get to experience that when they come to school every day. But I also wonder sometimes if volunteering is somewhat culturally, I don't want to say the word taboo, but it might not necessarily be a part of certain cultures that, a lot of our kids are a part of families that are a part of that diversity. And so do you think that plays a role in, say certain cultures where maybe that's not a part of what their schooling experience has been and they're just not aware of it? And if that's a thing, what are some ideas to kind of combat that?
I mean, I definitely think it's in the PTO, when we were in the PTO in the elementary ages, it was always kind of a harder to get group, especially because you have a lot of parents that don't necessarily speak a lot of
It might be a
English.
language barrier, right?
Yes, so that was like one of our biggest issues, like in Parkview, because not all the parents spoke English, and I think they were a little intimidated by it.
Sure.
Which I totally understand. So it's how do you get those parents involved?
Yeah.
And we would always try. We were fortunate enough that we had a lovely Asian mom who could break that barrier
a little
for
bit.
us. So that helped tremendously. So like if you can, you really just need like I feel like a bridge.
Yeah,
Kind
some
of like,
people to break that.
and just let people know that there's jobs where you can come into the media center and all you have to do is like nothing has to be. Not every job is like you're going to be in front of a lot of people having to speak in front of them and things like that. So I think you just need to make people feel comfortable and let them know that it's not as scary
Yeah.
as it seems, maybe, or daunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adding to that, like, you're right. Like when I grew up, there was no volunteering in school. So it was just we went to school, and I mean our parents did a lot behind the backs, like making sure that we are doing homework is up to date and those kind of stuff. But there was no volunteering in school kind of thing. So that was new to me when I came here. But when I came to Deerfield, it was like all the PTO had several meetings. The first time, like when we were new to the country at that time, like when I had my oldest, like maybe we had been here for 5-6 years or something.
Okay.
So it was new to us. But then the PTO had several meetings. And like, and my boys also, like in the class, when they would say, "Oh, so and so's parents came, mom came to help out. Can you come and help out?" Like, so that's how I started getting involved with it. And I think PTO held several meetings where they took us through different things which we can do and all those things, which help.
That's a great idea. I'm also going to ask this, and this one's maybe a little bit putting some of you on the spot, but one of the things I've also heard from parents that are barriers is that a lot of the PTOs, and I'll specifically speak to that group or other booster group organizations, can be a little bit cliquey, right? It's almost like we're the cool kids club and, we only want a certain group of people, to kind of come in. And so that has been off-putting maybe to a broader network of parents that may be willing to serve. Is there merit to that? Is that something that we maybe need to try and collectively as a community, as a team kind of work through? Or is that just kind of rumor mill stuff?
I mean, speaking for Orchestra, I feel like we make a really strong effort to not be that way.
Sure.
I agree with what Kaija said earlier about trying to find that person to sort of bridge like cultural gaps. Because we have, for example, someone in the orchestra who's really brought in a lot of Asian parents to our meetings.
Maybe one of the things that
Yeah.
you're kind of getting into or leading into is when you do serve with people, you become friends with them, right? Like you develop kind of a friend network, and maybe it's unintentional. We're not as aware that you do develop those relationships as you're serving through Parkview or through Village Oaks, and you're coming through, and then all of a sudden you're at the middle school in Meadows together. And so you've developed a, kind of a friend group, right? I mean, I know that the people that I've coached with in volunteer capacities and those types of things, they become your friend group. You're doing the things with your kids. And so I'm just wondering if this topic might be something to kind of think about as we, try and engage a broader network of parents and say, we want to be inclusive. We want to make sure that everybody has a place. I love the idea of building those bridges. We're running short on time, so I want to give each of you like the 30-second elevator pitch. What would you say to parents that you'd want them to know to encourage them? We need them to volunteer. We want them to volunteer. Kind of in closing this out, what would you say to parents in that effort? We'll start with you, Kaija.
I knew you were going to do that. I would say, like, the first thing is, like, it's great to spend time with your kids and see where they are, especially at a young age. Fast forward to high school where I'm athletic boosters. you get to be part of something a little bit bigger than just the team that your kid is on, and it's a great way to like see what the other teams are doing. We meet every month, and we have representatives from every team, so it kind of helps bounce ideas, and you can see what other coaches are doing. So I just think it gives you more knowledge and more insight into what other kids and other sports or other things are happening.
Great.
I would say parent and community involvement is what separates good districts from exceptional ones. We have always been exceptional. There is an opportunity for anyone out in the community if they want one. We can find something if you have skills and are willing to share them, if you're willing to invest in our kids. I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. If we don't have the community and parent support that we've always enjoyed, we slowly start fading into what other places look like. And, you know, we have exceptional people in our community, and they pour so much into our kids. We want that. Like, as the people running the buildings, running the schools, as the teachers running the classrooms, the load is very heavy, and we welcome many hands to help lift.
Love it. Love it. Kristy.
Well, I would say the best that we can do as parents is to support our kids and to show to them that what they do is important to us and where they spend their day is important to us. And I think by being present, showing the value of volunteerism going forward for future generations, I think that we can do that.
Love it.
I agree with Kristy. That's very important, like to teach the kids also what this is all about, like giving back to the community and all those things. And coming back to a personal thing, sometimes like the work which we do at work can become monotonous. Coming here and volunteering is like a totally different experience, gives you a relief from it's different from what your regular work life is. So
Yeah.
I would add that besides the other points which you guys all mentioned.
I appreciate that. I so appreciate all of your perspectives, and thank you for stepping up and volunteering and doing all that you do. Really awesome episode. We want people to volunteer. We need your help. We're welcoming you into our buildings. And as Mr. Brickey said, there is a place for everybody. So this has been very inspiring. Just hearing all of you talk about this, I appreciate it so much. Do want to just let everybody know our next episode will be airing in 2 weeks from today. And we will be talking about what exactly board members on a school board do. So hope all of you stay curious, and let's go Wildcats.